Oh, that is really loud. So this is an oral history interview for the CJAM Oral History Project, where we are celebrating 40 years on the FM dial. My name is Olivia Patricia, and I am sitting in the large studio at CJAM with Mark Sikich. It is July 20th, and the time is 5:48. How are you, Mark?
I'm just fine. Good to be in a happy place again.
I'm so glad to hear this is a happy place for you.
Yeah. Well, technically not necessarily this space. More the space that was down at the other end of the hall.
Yes. And I was wondering, could you introduce yourself or tell me a bit about yourself?
Well, started hanging around here probably in, I'm going to say, mid 70s. I took a couple of stabs at university, and so in the mid 70s, see, I'm old. I got to figure this out. Now, probably the late 70s. I started hanging out here when it was still AM carrier current station. Dean Zirkin was the station manager. Programmer was Blaine Spiegel. Leo Gata, who I don't know if you've talked to him yet. But,
no, I haven't.
He's a person you should talk to because he's a crossover for sure between the two. And the talk was at that time, I remember, that eventually we would like to get an FM license. And then later on, I started back at the university. I studied visual arts, so I have a BFA in visual art, and got involved even more heavily with the radio station at that time. And that's when Russ Wolski came along, and things really started moving towards the acquisition of the FM license. It was a great group of people. You've seen that picture. It's been posted on the page there about the day we got the license. That whole group of people, and it was, it was what it was like. You could walk into the office, and there would always be 5, 6 people usually just hanging out or doing this and that, and so I made a lot of friends, had a lot of fun, and hopefully contributed a lot to this place over the years. So I did a regular radio show. I helped start Friday Rocks. At first, it was Velcro Ripper, who just happened to be moving through town, now a famous documentary filmmaker, but from the West Coast. And he started the show. Then Rock came along, and when Velcro left town, he took over. Rock is originally from Battle Creek, so it just shows how I met a lot of people from Toronto and that I made friends with. Russ.
Mm-hmm.
Over those years, it was just a great place. I helped Rock start the show because I was the guy who knew how to work all the stuff.
Yeah.
The stuff we had. As we were talking earlier before we started the interview about, back in my day, it was analog. It was tape. When you did an interview and you edited things, it was literally taking a razor blade and cutting the tape and marking it, cutting it, and cutting out this part and splicing them back together. But it was a lot of fun too, and it just it opened up opportunities for all kinds of things, a lot of opportunities to go to concerts, meet musicians. Just, I don't know, there's just so many things.
Yeah. Well, why don't we start from the beginning? What years were you starting at? Did you start at CJAM?
I'm going to say my first times hanging out would have been around 78. And I'm going to say it was around probably 81 that I was here a lot.
Oh, cool.
Some might say too much.
And in 1978, were we going by CSRW at the time? Yeah.
So yeah, it was still CSRW, still the AM carrier current station at the time. And but it was fun just to be able to come and spin the tunes.
Yeah.
Now, when the FM license came along, that was to me like just opened it up, because then uh, people at home you could actually play records and have somebody else in the house actually listening to you instead of somebody in a dorm room, right? And that was, it was exciting. We thought, you know, we were providing an alternative to, well, the mainstream radio. Having grown up in the '60s, late '60s and into the '70s, having seen FM radio, hearing stations like WABX or W4, which were the radical stations, and they would play all kinds of music until corporates took over, and everything started to be running out of corporate offices, and then we ended up with the wonderful system of radio that we had. Well, I guess it's changing again in that, but system of radio that we had, but hits and all this kind of stuff. And like, they play an album and they would only play, you listen to mainstream radio, even the classic radio or rock or whatever, and they're going to play the same 3 songs by Led Zeppelin. They're going to play the same 4 songs by the Rolling Stones, the same 2 songs by the Who, the same 2 songs by the Doors or whatever, rather than, any of the other music on the albums, which was, when we started the FM here, we felt like we were harkening back to those free-form radio days of the late 60s and early 70s, where people would play a classical piece of music and then play, Fela Kuti, then play James Brown, then play, Minutemen or, Die Kreuzen or something.
Yeah.
It was just, it was that mix, and everybody had their own sort of viewpoint or whatever, or tastes and that. So it was a lot of you get exposed to a lot of different things. And then I just got heavily involved, like I said, like the one that took those photos out there.
Yeah, that's so cool.
The station thing. I worked on the guide, the selector when it first started. Doing the radio show, radio shows, many interviews. Got a chance to meet some fairly famous people too, and all by chance because of this place. Actually, there was one time I walked in, and a guy that was here, Carl Pretoria, had set up an interview, or had set up this thing, press. There was a little press conference with King Crimson, and he couldn't go because he had some school thing that he had to take care of. So I walked in, and he knew I was a huge King Crimson fan. He's like, "Mark, do you want to look? I got this. Can you do it?" And I was like, "Yeah, sure, I'll go do it. You could bring somebody else." So then Chris Burson had walked in, and I said, "Chris, I got this thing that Carl just set up over in Detroit. You want to do this?" And so we go over and met Robert Fripp and Bill Bruford, Adrian Ballou. We met their tour manager and the A&R rep for Warner Records. And I was going to say we, but I think probably mostly Chris charmed her so much that we had a great relationship after that. So then I was backstage for bands like Genesis, Peter Gabriel, and got to meet these people, and that wouldn't have happened had it not been for this place, And just a lot of even more of the alternative bands. Mike Watt from the Minutemen, I think he felt like we could talk to him on first name basis. We'd seen him so many times. Or just kind of funny stuff, running into, when Pat Petro and Botch, Dave Vicelli, brought Gang of Four to the Palace at downtown, right? And I met Hugo Burnham. A kind of funny story, but before I'll keep it family friendly. But met him, then a year and a half later, he's playing in a different band at St. Andrew's Hall, and we go there, and I'm like, I don't know, Hugo, I don't know if you remember me. And he's like, oh yeah, give us 10 minutes and come on up to the room. And we went up to the room, and David Sylvian was the guitar player in the band, and sat there and drank with them. And actually, David Sylvian came in the next day because they were playing in Toronto, so they were on the way from Detroit, Toronto. So the next day, he stopped in the station, and we did a impromptu live interview on the air type of thing. Right? I kicked out whoever was on the air. I said, no.
We got some cool people.
Special programming, yeah. But so stuff like that, it just, and the camaraderie,
Yeah. I was going through some the Lance articles, and I understand the relationship that CJAM had with the Lance was very on and off sometimes. This is just what I'm perceived from like a reader reading through Lance articles talking about CJAM. But in one article...
back when I was around, we were both like this.
You were tight. Okay, cool.
Yeah,
because they
really
wrote
tight.
a lot about CJAM. In December of 1981, I read that the station shut down for a little bit indefinitely. If you remember much of that, it was... they wrote about how it shut down for a few weeks due to some internal conflicts.
I'm not recalling that.
Oh,
so
okay.
much.
No worries.
No. If only conflicts I could think of was more along the lines of technical difficulties.
Oh, okay.
No. Like I said, I mean, those selectors, those were laid out in the Lance office.
Yeah, okay.
They would, they would let us use their dark room, and or develop film for us themselves, and I mean that was all typeset on their machines and laid out up in their offices. So
that's cool to hear.
I
mean, I was just reading through we have a document full of a bunch of CJAM articles from the Lance, so it might have just been my perception. But speaking of which, so in November of 1983, we got our FM license, and it was obviously a long journey to get there. And then in December, you started the Selector program guide.
Right.
And I was wondering if you could talk a bit about that.
We just decided that they wanted to put out a program guide, and since I was studying visual art, I offered up my services to help put it together. Martin Deck did a lot of the actual typesetting and or writing, and then him and I together. I forget how the name, how it came about Selector. I know it had something to do with, like, I believe the band or, the whole two-tone ska thing that was going on at the time. And I think that's why, because I just remember him saying it has to be an O-R.
O-R.
But, and then we just put it together, so it was just, something we did because for the to put out what the shows were and the guide in the middle and that
and you said you were going to school for visual arts at the time.
Correct.
Were you doing a lot of like photography? Was that kind of your focus, or did you do other stuff?
Oh, I was mainly a painter. That was, I guess, my major was painting, and I did a bit of sort of installation and performance art kind of things in video. I was one of the first students there to really start to delve more into video art and things like that. And so it was great. I had access to all the stuff. I could get access to the communications department, TV equipment, coming down here to be able to record things, and that helped me put together more multimedia sort of installation type things and stuff like that. And I loved the music, and this was the place.
Yeah.
This is the place.
The place for music.
Well, yeah, you know, I was exposed, like I said, exposed to so many things here that, you know, it totally expanded my musical knowledge or base, or so. Yeah.
Yeah. Actually, I found something. We have a bunch of just like old papers and newspapers, selectors. But I did find this one written up letter from January 5th, 1990.
Wow.
It was written to Chris Burton, Matt Zalev, you, and Rob Brune. And it was a 6-week suspension. The letter says, "It has come to my attention that on Friday, December 30th, 1989, Fuck My Shit Stinks by the Dayglow Abortions was aired on your program." And it went against the 1986 radio regulations. And you guys had a small suspension there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They could have suspended for a lot of
I've
other
heard
things.
of a lot of very silly stories that have happened.
But it was funny. Well, that's a later iteration of Friday Rocks. And we used to mess around all the time. And we used to really like to, pull Mark's chain a little.
I heard that Mark Fedek was very much, he worked hard to make sure that everyone followed the rules, I guess, at the station.
Yeah, I mean, Mark is that kind of by the book, sort of studious, very serious kind of guy, right? Even to this day, I get that sense, like because he's still writing music and posting it and things like that, and it's always interesting to hear. But yeah, like when he took over the station, it was, we used to sort of, push his buttons a little.
Yeah. I remember I found this one article about a cigarette dispenser machine that was put inside the CAW, the Student Center, to help raise money for the station. Wouldn't surprise me. I mean, I come from a time when there were cigarette dispensing machines, but that doesn't really think this is funny though. I do remember that. But I mean, we used to have a lot of fun with, like, because we'd play with the because there's the delay, right? So that we can drop out any of the bad words that may have accidentally been said, and so we would do stuff like bring a radio into the on-air room and tune it to the station. So what was coming out of the radio was 7 seconds after what was being broadcast. So we'd get this weird sort of echo loop thing going. And just playing with that, stuff like that, playing two of the same records at the same time, slowing one down a little bit and then speeding it up, stuff like that. It was fun. It was fun, and that was all part of the fun. And like, I guess in a way, doing that, you're kind of creating your own version of that song. And like your own type of art by mixing it up.
Well, I mean, when this is post Rock Connolly, it's after he had moved on to London, but I mean, we were the Paisley, Rock and I were the Paisley production team, so it was supposed to be a sort of psychedelic kind of show, right? So that was all part of it, right?
How did you guys come up with that name?
What?
The Paisleys.
Oh, that was Mr. Connolly, or the Rev Rock Zenda, as he is now known online.
Oh, I did not know that was him. I was messaging with him the other day, trying to set up a time where I could chat with him as well. So he was a part of Friday with the Paisleys.
Well, he was.
He was the Paisleys.
At first I was just a producer. Same with Velcro. He wanted to do this. He started the idea of doing it, and it was on Thursday. It was Thursday Rocks, and it was a theme show, right? So then, but he he was more of a filmmaker. He didn't know how the radio stuff worked, and the show was being recorded, so I would record it for him, and then after, like I said, he left town. He moved on to go to film school in Montreal. Rock came in, and he had his idea how it was still a theme show, but it was more of a Detroit garage rock kind of influence to the thing. And he'd come up with the theme, and he literally had scripts. So he would come in, and he was back going to Wayne State University at the time, so he would go back and forth, and while he's riding the tunnel bus and the bus to school, he would write out the scripts. So when we'd come in to record, because at the time, again, we were recording the show, we would he would have a whole script put out there, the type of thing, and all, and the songs all laid out and everything, and that's kind of how it started. And then Matt came along, and it was kind of the three of us, but Rock ended up getting a teaching position at Fanshawe. So he left, and Matt and I took it over, and then Chris and other people, Rob Bruin. And then Rob, I think, ended up doing the show longer than any of us. I thought I had done it for a long time, and I'd done it for like 20 years or 18 years or something. I think Rob did it for another 20-something or whatever. But again, that's how it evolved. It eventually became a live show. We did it on Friday nights, and so it became Friday
Rock. With the Paisleys.
Yeah. So, and but all that, the Paisley production team and all that was all Rock's creation.
I'll have to ask him about that. How was CJAM perceived on campus? Was it popular among students? Was it a certain group of students that were listeners?
Well, I think it was probably more of the arts community. There seemed to be really a lot of cohesiveness between the writers, the English people, the visual artists, the drama students, the film students. We all seemed to coalesce, and it was the whole sort of punk rock, which later became alternative music sort of scene, right? So it was a lot of that. And I think that because, so much of the university was mainstream, especially, I don't know what it's like now, but back then, we were sort of there was a lot of freaks with green mohawks and stuff like that, right? Which was, other people would see it as sort of, so, I wouldn't say generally, but there was no animosity. It was just, I think a lot of people maybe just ignored it more than anything.
Okay.
Or just didn't really form part of their experience or whatever.
Speaking of the art scene, what was like the art scene like in the 80s, 70s in Windsor?
Well, it's just as probably it was just as tough as it is now. I mean, it's hard to generate an audience in Windsor, especially an audience for original creative things. I mean, this is very much a lunch bucket town. It's a working class town, and if it doesn't have anything to do with NASCAR or motors and motorcycles or whatever, it just seems to not really catch. But put a Harley symbol on it, man. Golden. So like it was all sort of reflective of that. So there was a dedicated group, and I mean there are always people that are interested in art and that, but it's like if you talk to people about the Art Gallery Windsor, a lot of people, maybe more my age, say, or whatever, the thing that, the art gallery, they bring in that guy with the cornflakes and put the cornflakes all over the lawn, and that was supposed to be art and all this. And that's all, did you go see anything else there? Or just because that made the newspapers and was a controversy, that's why you know about it? Or,
Yeah. Like, are you really making an effort to see what else is out there?
I mean, I don't, how well attended is the art gallery, really? I don't know, it, it was gangbusters when it was in the mall. you know, it actually had people coming in quite a bit. But, you know, now that it's back in a beautiful building, a
It
beautiful
is,
setting,
yeah.
people are less inclined to go out of, they would go to it if they're in between going from Sephora to whatever, Trying to think of the stores that were there back then. I haven't been in the mall in so long, so I don't know. I'm not a mall person. But that was the type of thing, I was involved with Art Site when it first started up. I was very involved with Common Ground when it first started. I actually had the first show there
Really?
with Mary Ellen Scully, and so like it was a hardcore group of people that fought to expand beyond, because the art gallery was the art gallery, but it, especially back then, was really locked into historical stuff from outside of Windsor, and it's the same now. The Tea Party. The Tea Party used to play all the time at the Coach, and they would fill it up or whatever. They'd get decent crowds, but, they weren't popular in Windsor till they went to Toronto, and then they became, they had big record or whatever, started getting radio airplay elsewhere. And then all of a sudden, everybody in Windsor is like, oh, the Tea Party, the Tea Party. It's like, you didn't support them when they were here,
Yeah.
like, and that's just the way, it's just the Windsor way.
The Windsor way.
I've noticed that for years, visual arts, music, it's all pretty much, it was the same. But back then, because it was this group, like I said, drama students, musicians, artists, writers, the people from the Lance, people from the station, we all kind of were open to the alternative type of stuff that was going on, right? So it was good that way.
And I was just wondering, I keep thinking, because we're reaching the 40th anniversary of CJAM, and you were talking about the art gallery, we're having our celebration there. But we're celebrating like November 14th. Well, the party's the 18th, but the 14th is the birthday. Were you there during the first FM broadcast?
I was at home so that I could tape it.
Oh.
I got up and had my, everything all set up so that when it came on,
Ghost Town by the
specials came on, I was like, yes.
So you were at home, you were taping it.
Yeah. Then I came to the station.
Then you came to the station. Oh, that's so special. Do you still have that tape?
No.
No.
Yeah,
Oh,
probably
what
not.
a shame.
Cassettes, they don't. It's been a while,
Yeah,
and they've
yeah.
been moved around. Like I said, I still have a few that I hope I could find to give to Chris to digitize. But, I actually have a few old carts, and I'm not really sure what's on it. Do you know what a cart is?
A card?
A cart.
Like a cart. I know what
It looks like an 8-track.
an 8-track.
An 8-track tape.
I know what like a tape looks like.
Yeah, no, the carts were about this big, about that thick, and about that long.
Okay.
And they would have various lengths, 30 seconds, usually a minute, 15 seconds, 30 seconds, a minute. And they were for commercials type of thing, right? So
okay.
you'd plug them into the machine, and you'd hit it, and then they would they were automatically queued up, right? So you'd hit the commercial or whatever it was. We used them for sound effects and things like that, and it would cycle around and re-queue itself back up. It was like an endless loop.
I see.
Or we had longer carts where you could not put the indicator marks on them, and so they would just play continuously, forever. But tape, analog.
Analog.
Yeah, carts, cassettes, reel-to-reels.
I learned what a reel-to-reel was a few weeks ago. At least for I knew what it was in like the term of like filmmaking.
Right.
But for some reason, like, it didn't occur to me. I don't know. I'm born.
No. I mean, that's
2003. I've known computers my whole life, so.
And more power to you. Like, it's a lot easier.
Yeah, we're quite grateful for our equipment.
But
there's something special about
the
having those
hands-on
tapes and I guess. Because sometimes when I'm doing my show, I'm just sitting and it's just me on my laptop, queuing up songs. But I did it using CDs, and there was just a certain excitement about moving around the studio and like making sure the CD started at the right time and fading them.
Yeah, exactly. Or just I gotta have something queued up, right?
Yeah.
Frantically, put it on there. Oh, is this one long enough for me to go down the end of the hall and smoke a joint? That's what the 15-minute songs were for, right?
Speaking of smoking joints, what?
See, that was part of that too.
That was part of that.
You didn't like that.
I may or may not have heard some stories about silly encounters with weed and alcohol and just getting into crazy stuff at the station. Do you have any stories about that?
Oh, there's a few. I mean, I've been on the air fairly intoxicated. More than once here. Like I said, the Friday Rocks, like we would put on long songs so that we could go down. Actually, right around here, there's a tunnel that goes to other buildings around here, right?
No, there's no tunnel. I don't think there's a tunnel.
But I don't think they've ever.
Is there a secret tunnel?
There are tunnels that connect all these buildings.
I didn't know that. That's so cool.
But anyways, most of the time, I think they're just mostly for the janitors and maintenance access and stuff like that. But anyways, it was right around here. There was a doorway and a little stairwell that we could hide in and do our deeds and then run back to the station. One of the funniest is when, actually not long after we went on the air, we were at we're having a station party at Chris Burston's house. Mm-hmm. I don't know if I should name names, but I'm going to. So we had a party, and like most of the station was there. Russ was there. Chris was the program director at the time. Russ, station manager. All a bunch of us from the station. Of course, we're listening to the station, and the requisite long song comes on, and it was Matt Zalu that was doing the show, and we figured, he's gone to smoke a joint, or laughing, chuckling, ha 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 ha, and all this, and then the song ends, and at the end of the vinyl, it's got that groove at the end where it just click, click, no sound, it's just because it was the end of the record, right?
Yeah.
It's click. This starts going on for a couple of minutes, eh? And I just remember Chris and Russ looking at each other and sort of like, who's going? It wasn't that far from the station where we were at, where Chris was living at the time. But they both looked at him, and it was like, who's going to go? And of course, Russ was like, well, I'm the boss. I delegate things. So Chris is the one that ended up This is the one that ended up having to come down to the station. And in the old station, they had... there was the office area, then there was a door, and then I went into where the library and the two studios were. Mm-hmm. And somehow the door got locked, that middle door. Nobody had a key for it except for security, I believe. It was a real pain in the ass. Eventually but I think they had to kick out the vent in the door to be able to get in. So it was like 15 minutes of this click, click, click. going out over the airwaves. So there's stuff like that,
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, and there was a few people that have been in here, myself included. Altered states.
States. Were you around when the renovations happened at the student center?
Yes and no. Like when they moved to here.
Yeah, because there was the renovations, and CJAM moved into a little
Oh
tin
yes,
can
that's right.
trailer.
I forgot the trailer. Oh my god, I forgot about the trailer. Yes, I remember the trailer. So yeah, I was still kind of involved in that, but once the station was, well, no, I guess I did do some. Still was a bit involved around here, but it slowly fades over time. I had got 2 kids.
Yeah.
Life intervenes. So, but
What did you do after CJAM?
well, I did get into design and layout kind of things, and ended up working for a few publications like the Silhouette, Penny Saver, things like this, typesetting and things like that for a while. And then I've always kind of bopped from thing to thing. I played in a band for a number of years called Luxury Christ, and that really took up a lot of time because we were touring and we played out of town a lot. You probably never heard of Luxury Christ, eh?
There's a lot of
We
bands
were
I
a
haven't
number
heard of.
one here for a long time.
I'll have to play you on my show sometime.
Yeah, I wonder if they still have the CDs. I don't know.
I'll have to take a peek.
I know people keep stealing them.
I heard that is an issue here.
So, especially the good rare ones.
Yeah, actually, I read that when CJAM was in the trailer, there was actually an instance where I think 300 CDs and vinyl records were stolen,
Yeah, it's
never
possible.
to be seen again.
It's possible. I mean, I had a chunk of records that I ended up grabbing because they were throwing them out. That was the CSRW days.
Oh wow!
And they were just like getting rid of records, and I was like, I'll take them.
Free music.
Yeah. This is before the days of places like Dr. Disc and that. So.
Was it hard to get music in Windsor?
No. It actually was. There was that. To me, it was that there was a sort of transition in that, like, because our proximity to Detroit, there was always access. Like, the latest music came out. It was being played on the radio stations in Detroit almost immediately. Big bands came, they toured. They were doing their big American tours. They would play Detroit. So I had opportunity to see all kinds of bands. Be able to go over there and buy albums that wouldn't be released in Canada for another 3 months or something like that. Things like that. And then way ahead of Toronto. Way ahead of Toronto. Then it kind of flipped around when the whole punk rock alternative music thing started happening. Toronto, was more on top of it than Detroit was. Detroit, and so. But I mean, I never had a problem. There was always great record stores here, Records on Wheels. Sam's, now Dr. Disc, been around for a long time. So like, it never really was an issue. And then, like I said, I spent a lot of time in record stores in like Royal Oak or Ann Arbor, Detroit. So
That's cool.
I still have lots of vinyl.
It's special.
Yeah.
I get there's a resurgence right now with vinyl that young people are beginning to buy vinyl again. What do you think about that?
I mean, to me, it makes sense. It's more permanent. Like, yeah, they may get scratched or they get these pops and crackles, but they're not going to go and never be able to be played again, you know,
Yeah.
like a CD can.
Oh, I never thought of that.
You know, a CD gets scratched, it's fucked.
Yep.
You know, whereas a record gets scratched, it's salvageable.
Salvageable.
You know, and it's just, to me, it's more permanent. It's an easier technology to be played, or to, you know, and it's amazing how sensitive it is. It's funny how now with modern digital technology, when they go back to old 78 recordings, which were the direct to, you know, Victrolas, you know, speak into the megaphone because it's actually carving a wax,
Yeah,
a
yeah.
wax thing, right? And they're finding that when they clear out all the noise and all that, they can hear conversations in other rooms, because a lot of these older records were recorded in room, like or apartments or hotel rooms, things like that. So they could hear conversations going on in other rooms. That's how how much the fidelity is there. You know, it's just that there was never the ability to take it off the vinyl and reproduce it the way you can now. All the little noise reductions and things like that. But to me, it's warmer too. It's just has a warmer feel. You know, digital has a little. You know,
Yeah.
when we recorded our CD, we recorded it on tape.
On tape.
You know, 2-inch, 10-inch platters. The tape recorder would have taken up that whole wall there, literally.
Yeah, I can imagine.
But you know, it has that thing about it. A lot harder to use.
Yeah.
You know, you can't go in and tweak things or just let's snip this out now, you know, type of thing. It's like it all has to be physically sort of done, right? You know, or a lot more difficult. But yeah.
Yeah, I can imagine. So I guess, what do you do now? In the present, are you retired? Do you work still?
No,
Do you
being
make
an
art?
artist, not as much as I should. No, I'm just a laborer, building roof trusses, making triangles out of wood, and I was one of those artists that never really planned ahead, so I can't retire.
That's okay.
You know, I always joke. People say, "Are you retired yet?" And I said, "No, that would have taken planning." And I'm more of in the moment kind of guy, I guess. I don't know. But, no, so I just, you know, I'm a grandfather now, and you know, unfortunately, my grandkids are on the other side of the country. But yeah,
Do you still make art?
I play some music once in a while. I do a lot of photography. I'm always taking pictures and thinking about painting and that, but I haven't really. I guess when my kids were born, I had that mindset where, okay, I've got kids now, you know, and I was playing in the band, so that was my creative outlet because I knew, to me, playing in the band was easier than painting, because for me, painting is such a continuous thing, whereas the band, you can practice, and I can put it down, and I can go do that, then I can go back and pick up the practice again or whatever, and you know, whereas when you're working on a painting, it's this continuous thought process, right? And it would been just, I thought it would be too difficult, so that's why and besides, I thought we were going to be, you know, rock stars. So I put a lot of energy and effort into that, you know, and I mean, I did all the flyers for the band, or most of the flyers for the band, and, you know, did a cover for the second CD and things like that. It just, you know, that's how I got my creative kicks. And then I continued to just once the band, I stopped being in the band. I just sort of continued to kind of jam, and it's funny. Like I meet people in the street, they think of me more as a musician than I'm an art as me as an artist, and yet I was so heavily involved with Art Site, and like I said, starting Common Ground Gallery and all that. I was a visual artist at the time,
Yeah.
right? But most people would think of me as a musician, I suppose. But
Musicians are still artists.
yes,
Yeah,
no,
yeah.
but I mean, as the
Yeah,
type of art,
as a type of art.
yes.
Yeah. I guess before we wrap up today, I was wondering, because a lot of the listeners of CJAM right now and programmers are around my age.
Yeah.
I was wondering, as someone who was here in like these fundamental foundational years of CJAM, if you had anything you would like to say to these young new generation of CJAMers and programmers.
Keep it going. I find it heartening. Like I was really disappointed when that whole government thing with both the funding, with the student funding and how all that worked and I knew that would be a struggle. But I'm glad to see that there are still people that really, take it seriously and want to do it. And I tell you, and it's not a lie, it is the station that is on in my car. I would say 75% of the time.
That makes me so happy.
I still listen to it, all the time because I like listening to hearing new things, and being exposed to new things. And I just say, keep at it. And, I know people that went on to started here, and went on to actual careers in radio. Greg Gannett, a few other people actually were able to have good careers in radio, and they started here. And it's the friendship, the camaraderie. It's a little different now because things were more band oriented. Musically, it was more about bands and things like that. Now the music industry itself is so different. I find that weird.
I feel like it's one of those industries that are so hard to keep up with, especially as a consumer from the outside. It's so hard to figure out what's going on.
Yeah, to me, it harkens back to what was going on before there was rock and roll. The more show, like it's the one person with a band, like the shows, the Frank Sinatra, Peggy Lee, all that kind of Sonny and Cher, it just was back in the 50s and 60s there was more of that. I can't even think of the freaking word. But and to me, I see the music industry being more like that now. Like it's more about personalities and like the Tom Joneses, today's Tom Joneses.
Yeah,
what I mean? Or
people that stand out.
So like it's individuals. It's Taylor Swift, Ed Sheeran. I like Ed Sheeran, but I mean, it's like, they're Drake. It's single people. It's like a person, and then they collaborate with other people and this and that. But it's just, to me, it's this weird sort of produced kind of, to me, overproduced sometimes schlock.
That's so fair to say. I can totally see where you're coming from.
Like I was a band guy. I like to go see, guitars and drums and, saxes and keyboards and, people playing instruments. I'm not dancing.
Yeah. I get what you're saying. I get what you're saying.
Now it's all about the show, the dancing. Ooh, the dancers and the, not enough Foo Fighters in the world.
All right, that's so cool. I never thought of it that way. So thank you.
Stick with it, and I'm glad that you guys are I'm glad you guys are doing this. I'm glad that I could add to it in what way I have or can, and you know, just persevere, just do it. I mean, it's not for obviously here doing it here. It's not for the fame and the glory or anything.
No,
it's because it's fun.
Because we love it.
Yes, it's fun. It's you're creating. You're creating.
We're creating, yeah. And I guess as artists and artistic people, that's what we need. We need to create.
Yeah. So what do you do?
What do I do?
Yes.
I'm a student at the university. I'm doing a double major in dramatic arts and communication media and film.
Yeah, see,
and
so you know exactly what I'm talking
I know
about.
Exactly. I love the arts.
Yeah.
It's I don't think I could live without it.
Well, see, and that was what it was back then. Like I said, it was people from the drama department, from the English department, from the visual art department, from the music department. I think we all just love to have fun and make things.
Yeah.
And make fun of people.
And make fun of people. Well, Mark.
Sorry, Mark.
Thank you so much for making the time out of your day
I can't
and
believe
driving
you pulled
down.
that letter out.
I lost it because I know Chris Burston. We've been working together on the 40th anniversary, and I was like, "There's no way Chris got in trouble for this."
Oh yeah.
But now
He's
that
shit
I'm
disturber.
learning more about him and your group of people, I'm like, okay, this makes so much sense.
Just a bunch of fun lovers.
You guys know how to have a good time.
Yeah.
But thank you so much for driving out today and coming into the station to
No
chat
problem.
with me.
I'm glad I come down and take a look around and
feel
the vibe again.
Vibes.
Feel the vibe again.
All right.